By the end of these lessons on films, you'll understand why many directors turn to this unique form as a powerful means of expression. You'll move beyond a popcorn understanding of the movies and see how directors use the language of cinematography to convey important ideas. In this first lesson, we'll look at film in a big picture sense. We'll break down the structure, editing, and genre of film. This will give you a broad sense of how and why films are made and where they sit in relation to each other. Later, in Lesson 2 of Flying Through Film, we'll take a deeper look at the art of cinematography, which basically means how directors use the camera to create meaning, just like how poets and writers use the pen to convey their ideas. With these two lessons, you'll be able to critically engage with any film you study. Let's begin with an explanation of why films are made at all. In other words, why would a composer choose to make a film and not write a novel or poem to get their message across? It all goes back to that old saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. You can convey so many ideas so much faster in a visual medium. On the screen, action takes place instantaneously. This helps create exciting tension and speedy action that would lose its impact if drawn out in slow sentences. Another reason that a composer might choose to make a film is because it gives them more control over your experience as the responder, that is, part of the audience. When you read a novel, you have a lot of freedom to fill in the gaps with your imagination. It's much harder to do that with a film because the story world is already depicted in vivid detail. That may be because the composer wants more power to define how you see the universe that they have created. A final reason that composers might turn to film is because of the visual nature of modern culture. These days, as we go through everyday life, we are surrounded by advertisements, screens, and brightly coloured packaging. So many bright and shiny images fight for our attention all the time. We're used to seeing and understanding all the images around us in modern life. It's easier to make references to this world of images through, well, imagery. So that's another reason why people make films, because they are visual. There are lots of motivations behind a composer's decision to use film. Next time you watch a film, see if you can tell whether the composer chose this form because of some of the reasons we just explored. Remember, film lets you show speedy action, immerse the audience in a vivid and imaginative world, and engage with the visual culture of modern life. Let's now turn to the basics of film structure. Film is almost always a narrative medium, which means that it tries to tell a story. As you probably learnt in primary school, all good stories have an orientation, a complication, a climax, and a resolution. Lots of films follow this basic structure, although you'll learn in later lessons how some films, especially the postmodern kind, play with the traditional structure. In the orientation, the director will establish the setting, characters, and mood. Opening shots will give a clear sense of place, so you know when and where this story is happening. We'll meet the main characters. The opening music, dialogue, lighting, and cinematography will combine to create a particular mood that gives us an idea of what the film will be like. Is the opening mood hopeful, tense, scary, or something else? This opening mood gives you a sense of whether this story will be about struggle, triumph, or something else entirely. The complication will then present a problem that disrupts the main character's life. It throws the world depicted in the orientation into tension, sometimes chaos. The director might do this suddenly. Alternatively, they might create a slow build-up of unsettling events to represent a deterioration of some kind. The climax is the peak of the complication. Usually, the climax reflects the important message of the film. It's the high-stakes moment where the hero might have a profound realisation and where the film's big ideas are shown clearly. After this, the resolution returns the characters to some kind of order. It demonstrates a positive change to the characters after they've overcome the struggles embedded in the film's complication. That's the basic narrative structure of film. In summary, it usually follows the traditional sequence of orientation, complication, climax, and resolution. Now that you've got an understanding of the structure of film, it helps to understand how editing helps create that overarching structure. Editing is the way individual shots are pieced together. In other words, how they are sequenced, how they transition, and how long each scene takes. Let's start with the different types of transitions and the effect they have. The most common is the simple cut. It's simply when one scene flicks to the next, without any flashy effects. Because cuts are instant transitions, their effect is to imply that very little time has passed between the two scenes. Maybe the two scenes are even happening at the same time. Another technique is the cutaway. This is when a director cuts from shot A to shot B and then back to shot A. A director will do this to reveal new information in shot B, the cutaway shot, that changes how we perceive what's happening in shot A, or the main scene. Imagine, for instance, a movie scene in which two friends are having a conversation about how much they trust each other. They seem genuine. We believe them. But imagine then there's a fleeting cutaway that reveals a dagger hidden behind one of the friends' backs. The new piece of information conveyed in the cutaway totally changes how we perceive the main action, in this case, the friend's conversation. The shot of the dagger shows us that deception and betrayal, maybe even murder, are afoot. When the camera cuts back to the supposed friend's conversation, we return with a suspicious eye. A type of cut used for a similar purpose is the cut-in. This is when the camera, rather than cutting away to a different shot, simply zooms in on a person or object in the same scene to emphasise something you wouldn't have noticed in the big picture. A small child might be playing with a teddy bear, for example. But imagine then that this innocent scene cuts in closer to the teddy bear's face, revealing that one of its eyes is in fact a spy camera. Suddenly, your whole perception changes. Warmth turns to worry, all thanks to the new information revealed by the cut-in. Directors will also engage in what's called cross-cutting. This means they repeatedly cut back and forth between two scenes. This is a highly effective way of conveying two separate but simultaneous lines of action. In other words, it's a way for the director to flick between different scenes happening at the same time in the narrative world. Usually, a director will cross-cut between two scenes because they are trying to show that the scenes are somehow related. Imagine, for example, the opening to an action movie. It might start with cross-cutting between a gang of baddies speeding off in a getaway car and a bank that looks like it's just been robbed. By cross-cutting between these two scenes, it connects them, making it obvious that the escaping villains were the unseen bank robbers. See how good editing can weave separate events into a single narrative? The other most common transition is the dissolve. Instead of cutting from one scene to another, the first image fades slowly into the next. The slow transition implies that time has passed between the two scenes. This lets a film's narrative cover many years, even if the film is only 2 hours long. Sometimes the blurriness of dissolves evokes imagination or memory. This is why you'll often see dissolves used not just as a way of suggesting the passage of time, but also as ways of conveying dreams or flashbacks. Now, we've talked about transitions as one aspect of editing. Another is duration, which is the length of each shot. We call really long shots, where the camera just keeps filming one continuous scene without jumping around between different camera angles or using any fancy transitions, long takes. Often, long takes give the chance to convey extended conversation. This might allow a director to offer a deeper characterisation of the main figures in the film. This is certainly a case in Stephen Knight's film Lock, which is virtually a single-shot take of a single father's phone call in a drive home to London. The length of the shot creates a sense of intimacy that lets the audience become deeply invested in the father's anxiety as he races home to London. Long takes can also create a languid, relaxed pace. In Bright Star, a film directed by Jane Campion about the poet John Keats, lengthy shots of the beautiful countryside lull the audience into a dreamy sense of peace. Alternatively, long takes can linger uncomfortably long on a scene. You might have seen James Bond getting interrogated by the villain in Martin Campbell's film Casino Royale, for instance. The painful length of the scene, which goes on long after we want it to end, makes audiences uncomfortable. This, in turn, helps us better empathise with Bond's struggle. Short takes, on the other hand, create a fast-paced sense of action that propels the story along. This speed can create feelings of excitement or, alternatively, tension. In Rocky, the director John Avildsen quickly cuts together lots of short scenes of a boxer training to inspirational music. The speedy mashup, what's properly called a montage, creates an exciting sense of anticipation for the final fight. But as mentioned earlier, short takes can equally create a sense of tension. In the heist that opens The Dark Knight, a film by Christopher Nolan, the rapid camera work gets our palms sweating and hearts pumping as the Joker's henchmen storm the bank. The effect of shot duration, therefore, depends on context. In any case, it's great to consider how these aspects of editing help structure the film. Remember how we talked about the climax being the peak of a film's narrative? The use of short takes and rapid cross-cutting transitions would be a great way of hastening the film's pace to that boiling point. Conversely, the use of long takes and slow transitions like dissolves might be good for the orientation, giving the director more control in establishing a clear sense of time and place at the beginning of the film. Thus, editing is inextricably linked to structure. You can think of editing as the bones which hold together our structural skeleton. The stronger you can link a film's editing style and the way it structures the message of the film in your essays, the better your marks will be. Let's move on to genre. Genre is a category of films of a similar style. The most basic examples include comedy, drama, and horror. Genre is useful to consider because it will give us a clue as to what kind of message your film is trying to get across. Usually, genres have conventions, which means that they have certain types of characters, themes, or styles that recur in other films of that genre. In the American genre of spaghetti westerns, for example, films will often feature rugged anti-heroes, that is, heroes who really aren't all that heroic, and instead blur the line between good and evil. Their plots often concern revenge, and their themes are about the bloody origins of American settlement. Science fiction films, on the other hand, are almost always set in outer space or the far future. Their plots concern the implications of new technologies and often feature a clash between good and evil. Think the Jedi and the Sith. The list of genres is too exhaustive to unpack fully here. What is important to remember is that every film you study is likely to fall under a genre, which means it will follow certain conventions or rules that will give you clues to help you figure out the film's underlying message. Think about The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, a spaghetti western directed by Sergio Leone. We know that this genre emphasises the violence of early America, so we can deduce that the film might actually be critical of the main character's brutality. Or if we know that Ridley Scott's film Blade Runner is science fiction, and that science fiction films are often about the risks of new technology, we might work out that the film is warning us about the dangers of a robot future. See, understanding the genre of a film helps us understand its big ideas. Always think about what genre a film sits in and how considering that genre's conventions might help you decode the film's message. Great job! We've just explored a whole range of tools that filmmakers use to make powerful films. Next time you watch a movie, or make one of your own, you'll be ready to identify key techniques related to structure, editing, and genre. Be sure to check out Flying Through Film Lesson 2, where we unpack even more important film techniques and their effects. We hope you enjoyed this schooling online production. For more easy lessons on Stage 4 English Essentials, check out our analysis of Flying Through Film Lesson 2.